Statement PS 98, submitted by L. Wiles. We live in Cruisehole, and at times of day we are now totally cut off from the surrounding area due to the traffic that has redirected past our home. No buses serve our area, I'm not confident on a bike, or I have my toddler with me, and I won't walk down the cycle path in the dark. I work from home anyway, a privilege, and means I don't have to worry about a commute, but still need to take my son to nursery in Easton. When we enrolled him in 2021, this was the only nursery that had a place. It was an 8-minute drive each way, and now it's 3 times that at least. Trying to get out of Cruisehole, either down Cruisehole Road or up Troopers Hill Road to Church Road, is near impossible, really stressful, almost impossible to get back home to start work on time. Feel like I'm now producing more pollution driving for nearly an hour rather than approximately 15 minutes. This area is not designed for this amount of traffic. Many parts of both roads are one way, and the queue now stretches all the way down past my road, Butler's Walk, and in all directions. I can't see that this will improve. I understand the purpose of the scheme, but I don't feel the infrastructure is in place to make this workable. I am worried about my house losing value. I know many are feeling the same. Statement PS 103, submitted by Helen Hughes. For more than 18 months, strong voices have been telling the council how this scheme will negatively impact the city and in particular residents who live in the area. Here is a reminder of just a few of their manifold objections. 1. Motor vehicle journey times will become longer, leading to more stress and increased pollution and risk of accidents. 2. More traffic will be pushed onto already busy residential roads and shopping streets. 3. So-called pocket parks will become yet more places for activities such as drug dealing. 4. Women will have to walk back to their houses at night on quieter streets that will therefore be less safe. 5. Larger vehicles, including emergency vehicles, rubbish trucks, trade vans, and minibuses, will no longer have easy access and will suffer delays or, in some cases, simply be unable to reach their destination. 6. Bus journeys will take much longer with cars being funneled onto bus route roads. 7. Bristol is a difficult city for many people to cycle or walk long distances in, because of the hill sand, often wet and windy weather. 8. Parents need to get their children to school before going to work and, owing to the lack of places in local schools in the EBLN area, must often travel considerable distances. Closing off roads to through traffic will make these journeys even longer and more stressful. The bus routes and timetables are inadequate and bus fares too expensive. They are increasing by 50% in 2025. To provide a realistic alternative to driving for many people. Funding for buses is bizarrely completely separate from the funding for this scheme. Further, the consultation process was not fit for purpose, claiming to be co-designing with the community but failing to reach the greater part of residents and businesses in B5. The current outraged response to the implementation adequately demonstrates this. The council claims the fact that only 4.4% of local residents responded to the TRO consultation at the beginning of 2024 is proof that most people are quite happy to see the scheme implemented. This is audaciously illogical reasoning and denies any responsibility on their part to properly inform the very people who would be most affected. Now the implementation has begun, it is clear from the vast amount of evidence being collected on the Stop the EBLN Facebook group that many of the above concerns were completely justified. The only response the council is able to give to this is to repeat variations on the following, taken from the Transport and Connectivity Committee, meeting on the 5th of December, 2024. The project has engaged with the community since January 2022 to develop proposals for Bristol's first Liveable Neighbourhood scheme. This process involved multiple stages of engagement to shape the scheme before formal consultation on the proposed trial scheme. The decision to proceed with a Traffic Regulation Order, TRO, is based on objective criteria such as safety, traffic flow, environmental impact, and legal compliance. Personal preferences or general dislike of a scheme proposal is not a sufficient reason to prevent the progression of a TRO. The decision to proceed with the East Bristol Liveable Neighbourhood EBLN TROs is based on a thorough evaluation of its potential benefits and impacts, rather than the number of objections or general sentiment against it. The scheme is being installed and is due to be complete in early January 2025. The Council will monitor the scheme for 6 months before re-engaging with the community to understand what changes may be required for a permanent scheme. In other words, we really don't care what you think, need, or how much you suffer. We have made this decision and nothing anyone can say will change our minds. We will only engage with the community on our own terms. A healthy community and wise leaders need to be able to give and accept feedback. This is essential for any living system that wishes to thrive and not move towards entropy. Bristol City Council's paternalistic approach and complete refusal to listen to the hundreds of complaints, objections, concerns and criticisms of this scheme shows an utter disregard for what it means to thrive, and therefore for the well-being, the health and happiness of the people who live and work in this city. I have to wonder what is making this obstinate stance on behalf of the Council worth it. At least it has achieved one thing. East Bristol's residents are indeed starting to get to know one another better. Not because they can finally cross their streets to meet their neighbours on the other side without being run down on the way, or sit down with them on the street to have a coffee, but because so many have come together in solidarity and outrage at what the Council is doing to them. Statement PS 118, submitted by Helen Armstrong. People who live and work in East Bristol were not adequately consulted about the Liveable Neighbourhood scheme. The statutory consultation was nothing but a box-ticking exercise. Our views have been disregarded. This is undemocratic. As our councillors, you are failing in your remit stated on the Bristol City Council website, representing the people. As a councillor, you'll be involved with individuals and groups with a range of problems and priorities. You'll need to speak up for people in your area, whether they voted for you or not. You won't always be able to agree with them because you have to consider the wider needs of the community as well as individual concerns. The views of local people and business owners in the objection report of the 13th of March 2024 were heartfelt expressions of concern from people living in the area, many of whom rely on the kindness of family members and unpaid carers who drop in to look after them or run them to the shops. Local businesses will undoubtedly suffer from the drop in passing trade. This scheme will have a negative impact on local people's well-being and the local economy. Look at what happened during the COVID pandemic. People became isolated and depressed, and we are still seeing the after effects of the lockdowns on people's mental health. I worry this scheme will have the same effect on vulnerable and elderly people in East Bristol, who are already finding that their family member who used to pop in on their way from dropping the kids at school or on their way to work is no longer able to visit them because of increased journey times. You say that traffic will settle down after a while, as people find other routes or modes of transport, but there are no other routes out. We are stuck. Public transport is unreliable. The new number 5 buses are infrequent. I gave up taking the old 36 bus to my workplace years ago, as I was often late for work when the bus didn't turn up. Lucky enough to be active in middle age, I now walk 40 minutes into town along the feeder road every day and 40 minutes back in all weathers. Making people walk by providing a terrible bus service is frankly unacceptable. I have an old bike, but I'm too scared to use it on the feeder road. Cycling in Bristol is dangerous, with cycle lanes suddenly ending, spewing out cyclists onto crowded pavements or busy roads and roundabouts. Proper infrastructure for the alternatives to car driving should have been put in place before closing roads. You could have looked at making Beaufort Road one way. Marsh Lane is being turned into a bus gate when no buses come this way. You couldn't make it up. Many of the worries voiced by local residents in the objection report are already coming true, and the scheme is not even fully operational yet. People in Barton Hill who rely on taxis to bring them home from the supermarket with their shopping are finding that taxi drivers are refusing to take the job because of the increased journey times. This scheme is already impacting on our lives, and it discriminates against the people who live here. These short journeys through our area are an essential part of daily life. Many people here are unable to walk or cycle. We need cars. Telephone engineers I spoke to recently are already finding work unbearable in East Bristol. They need to use their vans. Emergency services need easy access. Seconds count. Forcing traffic onto other routes has already increased travel times to such an extent that people in the area can't live a decent life. When we bought our house in Marsh Lane in 2007, we were told that Barton Hill and Redfield were in an area of regeneration. The plans for the East Bristol Liveable Neighbourhood scheme are having the reverse effect. Litter and fly tipping is already mounting up on the benches that are stacked on the pavement, waiting to be installed. This scheme will consign us to living in a backwater. It is ill-conceived, unfair, and unlivable.
Statement PS 125, submitted by Satwant Full. The LTN has had many negative impacts to many people who live in St. George. It has increased travel times to Avonmeads and beyond, for by an extra 20 to 30 minutes for people in St. George. The bottleneck at Blackswarth Road to turn right onto Church Road is now ridiculous at peak times. This is precious time that is taken away from families, especially in the evenings when people need to buy groceries and other household goods and get back home to cook food. It has reduced the frequency with which many relatives or friends come and visit the area due to the increased travel times and increased traffic on Church Road and Blackswarth Road. This is affecting the mental health of older and retired people who need social contact with family and friends. It is affecting people's ability to commute to work in a reasonable amount of time. The increased traffic on Church Road at peak times increases travel time by more than 30 minutes each day if people work in completely different parts of Bristol. The restrictions in the roads connected to Beaufort roads make things extremely dangerous in an emergency situation, such as when fire trucks or ambulances are needed. At peak times in the morning, there are regular instances of cars, bin lorries, delivery vans, and construction workers all trying to travel in both directions in Beaconsfield Road. This would waste critical time in an emergency situation. The expectation that everybody can cycle and catch the bus everywhere in Bristol is unrealistic. Many older or retired people are not all healthy enough to cycle, and even if they were, it is dangerous or impractical to cycle in the winter when rain and ice can be present on the roads. The expectation that everybody can catch the bus everywhere is also unrealistic. Buses in Bristol are cancelled regularly, and many areas in the city do not have suitable start and end points. Cars are much better suited to getting to different parts of Bristol due to the poor public transport. Many households in St. George have a car, and it is incrementally much cheaper to use it to get everywhere instead of public transport. Everyone pays their taxes to use the roads when required. LTNs reduce the utility of the existing road network, and taxes have not been reduced by the commensurate amount.